Okay, great. And we're live with another episode of The Focal Thought. And my esteemed guest today is Mr. Rob Caputo. And just for the introduction, I actually joined a barbecue group on Facebook recently, about a month ago. It just changed its name. So right now it's Barbecue Pitmaster Secrets, I believe. It used to be And Backyards. And a good friend of mine got me into barbecuing. So I've been learning the craft, and the first thing that struck me was that um, the things that I knew about barbecue I had to throw out the door because I was doing it all wrong. So it's
Mhm.
a really good group because it really shows you, the correct way of barbecuing. People have a lot of misconceptions, and this group really sets things straight. I used to think that barbecue was, recipe based, food ingredient based, but since joining this group, I've come to learn that barbecue is actually equipment based as well. I'm sure that a lot of the flavor and a lot of the quality of the food that is produced is as much represented by the equipment as it is by the recipes and the quality of the ingredients as well. So this is where Rob comes in because a friend of mine, the same guy who got me into barbecuing, Marco, he showed me one of your ads on Facebook where you were customizing grills for drum barbecues, and I said, "Oh wow, that's awesome! Someone in our own backyard in Durham." So I want to ask because you're not only customizing barbecue equipment, you're actually building them. Like you've got this Santa Maria that you posted on the group, which looks amazing. So, in terms of building barbecue equipment, is that something you do full time professionally, or are you sort of in an industry related to equipment building, and this is sort of side hobby? So, what's up with that?
Well, first of all, Graydon, thank you for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity to actually speak my mind about different things. It's actually pretty cool. Um, yeah, so in terms of equipment, yeah, so like there's different methods of cooking, and how I basically got into this was, to be honest with you, COVID. So I was driving truck for like the last 11 years. I have a little bit of welding experience getting out of high school. The only reason I got out of that was basically there was no money in it unless you're working for yourself. So got
Yeah.
into truck driving and pretty much forgot about the craft for a little bit. And when COVID hit, it just gave me an opportunity to basically refresh things, almost like a refresh, like a state of a mind, like a mindset, if you will, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I just got into that, and to be honest with you, posting those ads on Marketplace was actually probably the best thing that I could have ever done because I threw everything that I had out the window and I just opened up my own shop. Like I wanted to open up a shop, so I just did it. It was enough thinking about it, enough talking about it. I just did it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it opened up a lot of doors because I got to learn about a lot of different cultures out there. So I actually got banned on Facebook Marketplace for exceeding messages. I exceeded 5,000 messages in a month.
No
But
way. Is this outgoing or incoming messages?
outgoing and incoming.
Wow.
Yeah, so like I would get placed on a 24-hour ban each time I would exceed my messages, which pretty much happened every day for about 15, 16 days, right? Until they kind of slowed down a bit. But yeah, through that it gave me like a really ample opportunity to get to learn about different cultures. Like I just started doing making griddles on the side, just for like a little income, on a passive income way. While I built these, actually like spent my time focusing on steel drum barbecues, which is how I started off, right.
Yeah.
So I got into flat tops, and then I had a lot of people from the Sri Lankan community and the Indian community basically messaging me for Kotu flat tops, Kotu roti,
Yeah.
and it was, I didn't know what it was, to be honest with you, but one of my customers, he ended up showing me how it works, and it's basically essentially the same thing. It's a flat top, except you have utensils with you, where you have like basically two trowels, if you will, and you're controlling your food on top of the grill. And I thought it was really interesting. And then, but that wasn't so I kind of like transitioned myself into that. But that wasn't the only thing. Like I learned about like so many different methods, and this is all in the last 5, 6 months, by the way.
Wow.
Um, yeah, like it's just honestly an amazing learning opportunity, and even while I'm fabricating, I'm learning every day, and that's one of the things that keeps me going is basically my desire to learn. Like I have like a deep passion into learning. As long as I'm learning, I'm happy. Like it doesn't money really doesn't phase me, to be honest with you. So when it comes into financial burdens and things like that kind of cloud your judgment during a business and when you're opening up a business, but like you got to rely on your creativity and not be scared, and that's essentially what I'm doing right now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. And just as a small side note, so kotu roti, that's sort of a cuisine from the Sri Lankan Tamil culture. And essentially,
Yeah,
for those who don't know what it is, it's basically like a paratha, which is a flaky roti that they cut up into small pieces with those trowels. And they add onions and spices and gravies, etc. And they sort of mix it all up. So it's almost like a fried rice, but made out of this paratha. And the device that they do it on is almost like a flat top griddle, right?
exactly. Yes, yes.
And they need that sort of design to their specifications so they can get that hammering going with those two trowels. And I've seen it at the restaurants how they do it. It's quite neat. It's a different
Yeah,
technique.
it's actually really awesome. I had no idea it existed. To be honest with you, I was just looking at it as a griddle, like something
Yeah.
you cook your pancakes on or your bacon on and stuff like that, which is amazing for it, especially flat iron steaks. It's one of my favorite things to do on top of the flat tops.
So is it the Kotu Roti griddle, is that different from the good old fashioned dino griddle, or is it sort of the same?
Well, it's honestly it's a different method. So I'm a big fan of charcoal cooking. I love charcoal cooking as opposed to propane or natural gases or anything like that. It's a little more
Yeah.
time consuming, but yeah, it's I get it. When you're in the restaurant industry, you gotta like adhere to some codes, and you're not allowed to basically like have flames or like coal cooking inside restaurants. So that's where essentially the market's pretty much gone to is like propane and natural gas, because it's like I said again, it's less time consuming, and yeah, it's just easier really.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like it's different from the Dyna-Grill, because like the Dyna-Grill, like if I'm not mistaken, works on natural gas, and you would think that yeah, you're just getting an open flame on top of the bottom of flat top. It doesn't really affect it. Like you're not really getting the same method. Like you're getting the same method of cooking, but you're really not. I mean, like the smoke even is something that adds to the flavor. It's just an amazing thing. Like I've ever since I was a kid, I've been obsessed with coals. I love coals.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't, right? I mean, it is painstaking in terms of the length of time and fire management, but it's well worth the effort. I mean,
Yeah, it's mesmerizing. And to be honest with you, when I'm on a charcoal grill, like my mind's like gone. Like you know what I mean? I'm in it. You know what I mean?
yeah. And the Kotorodi grill, so that's underneath the flat top. It's a gas burner, right?
No, so everything that I fabricate at my shop is all charcoal barbecue. So
Even for
like
the Kotorodi grills?
yeah, so
That's
essentially
amazing.
you're just laying a flat top right on top of your grill, essentially the same way. You could even do it on a propane grill if you wanted to, but I just prefer a charcoal method because it's I don't know, it just adds the flavor. I've always said if you're gonna do something, do it right.
Yeah, no, no, from the get go for sure. And
Exactly.
that Santa Maria machine that you posted, I think some time ago, and then today you're sort of still working on it. And again, for those who don't know, Santa Maria style barbecue, that comes from the Santa Maria Valley in Santa Barbara County, just off California, and that sort of is a grate that's hovering over a sort of bed of charcoals. And the cool thing about this, it's got a wheel connected to chains, and you can
Yeah.
sort of lower and increase the height of that, right? So you're getting close to the coals, you're getting further away from the coals.
So essentially, yes, that's what you're doing is you have well mine you have a steering wheel mounted onto the side, and basically that elevates the grill from up and down with cable controls and on a latching mechanism. So as you're lifting it up, the I have a spring compressed latch that basically goes into the gear and holds the weight of the grill up. But what's really unique about that unit that you're talking about that I'm building right now is that there's actually a 16 chicken rotisserie that's mounted on the back. And one of the problems that we were having was he couldn't have my customer couldn't have anything come into his line of cooking. So kitchens basically they're essentially small. And line space is really important. So we ended up building the unit around 33 inches wide, which was just enough for him to clear his line. But that posed a conflict with the actual size of the grill. So what we ended up doing was lifting the back end unit, the back of the platform up, so it was elevated higher, and the chicken rotisserie can function that way. And the Santa Maria would be on the bottom level. So essentially, you'd be burning all your coals and your sticks up top while your chicken's cooking. And if you wanted to cook something on the Santa Maria, you'd basically drag the coals forward with one of the tools that I actually have going to the customer as well, which actually comes with my unit.
Oh, wow, amazing. Okay, so now that's making sense. And it's unfortunate this is audio only because for those listening, you're not able to sort of see the picture. But, if you go on the Facebook group, you'll see Rob's picture there of the Santa Maria. If I can sort of just try to explain it to give our listeners a visual, it looks like an upright piano. And the first level, there's a rotisserie, which is the Santa Maria, which you can, increase the height or lower it. And just right behind it, you've got that second rotisserie, which will fit the 16 chickens, right?
Exactly, yeah. So that one's custom made to fit 16 chickens exactly, using these custom water jet plates that I've had cut basically. So they're just one skewer goes into one side and connects to the other, and have 4 chickens on each bar basically.
On either side.
Yeah, so like it's hard to explain over audio.
I
Honestly,
know, I know.
once you see it, like it's self-explanatory.
It'll make sense. And then you've got at the bottom of it, you've got the wheels on the casters, and there's sort of like a grate at the bottom, right?
Yeah. So what the customer wanted on this unit was essentially like a wood storage underneath.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
yeah. So basically, he could store his wood underneath, and when he's ready to use it, takes it out from underneath, puts it up top. Um, but again, we had a lot of trouble incorporating like space, which was a big issue for him. So normally on a unit like that, on a Santa Maria, you'd see the doors basically fold down on the front of them, and you can control and sweep out your coals that way. But because of his line, what we ended up doing was putting I recessed the hole inside the actual unit itself with a plug. So basically, once he's done cooking with his coals and utensils and all this stuff like that, he just drags everything forward and puts everything into the hole, which has a bucket underneath it, and the easy clean unit, like just like that.
That's amazing. And I'm looking at that second picture right now. And that's basically, for our listeners again, if you just visualize like a kitchen sink with a hole, and the hole sort of not in the center, but to the right of the unit. And that's where he'll sort of, push everything out into that as a waste depository, right?
Exactly.
And the cool
So
thing is, with the wood being stored underneath, I mean, that's one of the things I learned recently on that Facebook group, is that, you always want to try and keep your wood warm before putting it in to the fire. So it's got a sort of like a head start, and then the oxygen will burn it cleanly, right?
Um, yeah, you know what? I've never actually really thought about that, but that kind of makes sense now that you're saying that. I guess that just basically takes any like the leftover moisture that's left into it,
Yeah,
and basically puts it into the fire, just so you're not cooking with wet wood, basically.
correct. Yeah. And that's one of the things I learned also from the group, and actually did a post on that is, should I soak my wood chips, or use dry wood chunks, etc. And the comments were very varied, right? A lot of people were saying soak them, and then a lot of people were saying don't soak them. So there's a lot of misconceptions still, and we're finding out as we go along.
It's
Um,
honestly a whole game of trial and error, and whatever works for you. Honestly, there's no right or wrong way of cooking.
yeah,
Obviously, if you burn things, you burn things, right? But there's no real right or wrong. I see it as this whole world. There's no real right or wrong way of doing things. It's just your way. If it works for you, just do it.
Correct. Yeah, you're just out to please yourself primarily, hopefully.
Exactly. It's trial and error. If whatever works for you, like I'm a big fan of trial and error. Like it's just another thing that's closer to perfection, if you will.
Yeah, and that's how we stumble upon things too.
Exactly. It's a you learn things. That's how exactly how you learn things.
So you've got some basic fundamental knowledge on metals and welding. Now, to be able to transfer that to different industries, I imagine you would have to know about somewhat about the different industries. So now to transfer this welding knowledge to barbecue, is that easy or is that hard? Are the sort of mechanics the same, or did you have to learn about barbecue stuff before doing that?
Interesting question. Um, to be honest with you, I've been an individual who's had, I could honestly say, over 100 jobs in my life.
Yeah.
Ever since I got out of high school, it's just I've never liked working for anyone per se, but I've enjoyed learning. And there's so many industries that I've touched and I've learned so much. I was general contracting for a bit. That's where I learned how to do brickwork. I was welding for a bit. That's where I learned how to do structure. I was, it's just little bits of knowledge I picked up everywhere. And like, I honestly, my days consume like my time basically on YouTube and just basically learning from people who have experience in the field. And like,
Yeah.
if it has anything to do with learning, I'm in there. I'm
Nice.
honestly, yeah.
And there's tons of stuff to learn and also unlearn, right, as we go along, again, with those misconceptions.
Oh yeah, for sure. Unlearning can be a tricky thing, but because it is habitual, but
Yeah.
it is a process. If you're humble with yourself and you know right from wrongs, it's a pretty fairly easy thing to forget if you wanted to, right?
Correct. Yeah. Now, the other thing I'm seeing on learning as well is with the offset smoker, and again with not only the offset smokers but the water smokers, etc. The metal that's used is very important. I think it's primarily important that heat retention is so important because you need heat to retain so you can have a consistent fire. I've got a
Yes.
small water smoker which my brother gave me. It's a junior hobby type smoker. It's not like a Weber Smoky Mountain. It's
Hmm.
good, just to sort of hack away and get started, but it's very thin. And I remember just a couple of weeks ago, it was maybe 5-7 degrees, and I was just using it to do some pork loin, and it managed to, stay at 250, but it took a lot of coal and a lot of fire management just to keep it going. Uh,
Yeah.
I've heard that quarter-inch steel is sort of like the industry standard for making these metal containment units, right? For barbecuing, and that works really well.
To be honest with you, I can't even really answer that. I've been learning actually a lot about smokers over the last couple of weeks, and I've gotten actually interesting. You said that I have two orders for smokers that I have to submit by early December. So keep an eye out for that. Actually, I'm gonna be posting a bunch of that stuff.
Nice.
Um, so I'm gonna be using quarter-inch steel, 28-inch pipe on width, and around 5 feet in length, just for the cooking chamber. And for the actual, the cooking chamber, and then the firebox, I'd be using the same steel, but 2 feet in length, so 28 inches wide again, and it's all going to be quarter-inch steel. So one of the things I've been learning as I've been watching videos and actually following people on Instagram and professionals that actually do this on a day-to-day basis is that it always has a tight seal. Like a tight seal is very important when you're dealing with smokers.
Yeah.
So like essentially when your doors, a lot of people don't really know this, but the second heat makes metal contract,
Yeah.
like expand. Sorry, and when it cools off, it makes it contract. So when you're welding, this is the same concept. When you're welding it, if you don't weld, if your doors aren't braced properly, you can actually have like a gap where the door can actually bend open and actually compromise the whole structural integrity of the smoker itself, because well, now it's a useless smoker. It's not retaining any heat anymore, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so quarter inch steel should be the industry standards, but from what I'm finding, when you go to places like Home Depot or Costco, it's mostly just 16 gauge steel, and it's effective for, again, hobbyists. But like when there's people that want to get into more serious aspects, um, one of the companies I really look up to is a company out in Lockhart, Texas called Millscale, and their work is absolutely astounding. Like it's beautiful work. Um, I really look up to them for education and just basically look on aesthetics on things, and it's a really clean process the way it's done. But yeah, they actually use quarter inch steel. But then again, in Texas, everything is big,
Yeah.
so it is on a bigger scale down there, right? And which I feel is actually going to transition up to Canada. Like, I mean, ever since COVID hit, a lot of people are just starting to get a bigger picture on what's actually real and what's actually not. And a lot of people are actually taking the time to actually value family, which I find is really important. And when you're valuing family, you're always cooking for them, right? Like you want to cook for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like I hope to God it actually transitions up here, because it's not just about the barbecuing itself. It's about what it does. It unites cultures. It brings people together. It's just an amazing thing. Food in general does that, but barbecue and architecture, and when you get into arts and stuff like that, it is an art in itself, right?
Yeah. And it takes us, right back to the cave days, right, of cooking over fire.
Oh yeah, can you imagine what they actually like first? I mean, can you imagine a caveman putting a piece of steak over a fire for the very first time? Like, what his thought process would have been?
Yeah, I saw this funny comic. I think it was on the group again the other day. Two sets of cave men, and one of them is sort of holding the meat with the hands over the fire, and the other person had put the meat through a stick and was sort of rotisserie it manually that way. It was
Oh yeah,
a neat cartoon to see.
yeah.
Is there any merit with going with a thicker steel than half inch? Sorry, quarter inch. So maybe going into half inch or 1 inch or.
Well, 1 inch steel is actually like unnecessary when you're dealing with, especially with pipe. I found that the quarter inch steel is should be sufficient enough. I mean, all the people I look up to, like Moberg Smokers, Mill Scale again is the name I'm going to throw out there. They all use quarter inch steel, which I think is an industry standard, especially when you're dealing on like a pipe on shorter lengths, which has a more rigidity in it. So the shorter the length of steel, the more rigidity it's going to have. If you're dealing with a smoker that's like 10 feet long, I would recommend using maybe 3/8 or a half inch. I still think half inch is completely unnecessary, but when you're dealing with lengths, steel has a way of warping itself to its own position, if you will. You know what I mean? It's where it's braced, where it's not braced. But when you're dealing with a platform like on a 5 foot scale, it's really rigid. So quarter inch steel, I think, is more sufficient when you're dealing with smokers anyway. The the unit actually I'm building right now that you mentioned earlier, that the whole body of it is made as a 316. But mind you, it's not really being exposed to the elements because of the fire brick that's mounted on the inside, which kind of encases it and keeps all the heat on the inside. It retains all the heat on the inside of the unit, right? So it's different applications, different things. It varies really. There's a lot of variables when it comes to steel.
Nice, I like that. So you've done a bit of steel and you've done a bit of fire brick to get that total insulation going.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted the unit to actually retain the heat where and keep the outside heat basically like cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, keep the outside of the body like of the unit like cool while the inside is doing its job and it's staying hot. It's actually cooking and it's encasing everything. You know.
That makes sense because if you're on the line and the restaurant's rocking and rolling, and you don't want you touch the outside surface backs and you don't want to get burnt or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. It poses a safety risk. So I just went ahead and did that. And honestly, a 316 body on top of it, if very little heat will probably get to the back of the unit, but with the 316th body, it is a thicker steel. structurally it's rigid, and it's thick enough where not enough heat would travel through it, right?
Got it. Got it. Now I come from the music world, and I remember one of the guitar companies. I think it was Ovation. I know this is true or not. I have to fact check it, but I think what they did was they were utilizing space material technology and putting it on their guitars. There are other metals, that are very good conductors of heat. So now we're using steel, but there's things like brass, iron, aluminum, copper, silver, gold. Now, I understand gold for price purposes might not be the best. But
Yeah.
any sort of thoughts on using other metals other than steel?
I mean, for your industry standard on barbecues, most people use carbon steel or stainless steel. When they
What's the
get into,
difference? Sorry.
well, carbon steel is basically like hot rolled steel as your standard industry metal. Like it's what you use. It needs a coating. It will rust. Stainless steel, you can get away with using thinner material and actually having the structural rigidity of it and having it not rust, which is a huge thing. Um, but if you want to get into the mixture of metals, that's another different story because over time, when they recycle metal, like it actually gets diluted, so it's nothing pure anymore. So you might see stainless steel, say it'll never rust, but the reality of it is when it's recycled, there's a lot of mixtures in it, and there's a lot of impurities in it, and which makes it like kind of weak and fragile. So I don't know. It's even see it's just an industry standard with metal itself. It's nothing controllable unless you get something pure, right?
Correct. Got it. Oh, I didn't know that. So with recycling, it lowers the purity level of the metal.
Yeah, exactly. So you might start off with a piece of iron, for example. Iron starts off at its 100% content, then it gets recycled and it's burned, like melted again. And when it's melted again, there could be other metals inside there that you don't even know about it, dust particles even, and it just mixes in there, and it's not pure anymore, right? For metals it really doesn't, for steel anyways it doesn't really matter, but when you're dealing with stainless is a premium product, and it does cost a lot more money.
Yeah.
I would say on the scale of like 10 to 1 when you're dealing with steel. So the fact that you find out it's going to rust 2 years later as opposed to 2 months later is kind of a letdown, especially when you're paying for a premium product, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Correct. Well, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
And then with these machines, so say for example, someone comes here and they say, "Hey, Rob, I want you to build me a machine." What's your process? How do you go through it with them? How do you customize it? What are you looking for them to tell you? What's good information for them to tell you?
Interesting. Well, I've always looked at it as like, what does the customer want? And obviously, most people, they look at the concept of time. I don't want to be wasting too much time with the customer and this and that, right?
Hmm.
With me, it's different. I actually look for education. So if the customer is going to educate me on exactly what they want, for example, that unit I built, me and a customer from Montreal, because that's where that unit's actually going after this. Um, we spent maybe 3 4 weeks consistently on the phone just going through designs and scrapping designs and putting new concepts in and taking them out, and it was just I took the time. I actually took the time with the customer, and that's what a lot of people don't get is like there's a lot of influencers out there that basically tell you to open your eyes and listen to what your customer wants, and
Yeah.
that's essentially what I was doing. And if you come up to me and ask me, I want something really intricate, but like I don't think I can actually have the time to tell you. I'm like, no, I want you to have the time to tell me. Take the time to tell me, educate me on exactly what you want, and let's see if we can do it. And most of the time, the builder, I would assume, not just for barbecues, with anything, would assume like how much time am I going to be wasting with the customer?
Yeah.
Well, no, it doesn't. You're gonna have to do it, and most of the time you'll end up getting a turnaround, like a sale from it. Like I don't expect a sale at the end of it, but if you're educating me, like just the education is wealth to me.
Correct. And in this case, when the customer told you they needed to fit in the line, right? So everything's revolving around that line.
Exactly. So we dictated space. We did hand movements. where exactly things would be sitting, where your plug is, all sorts of things. And that was just for his unit. Like I would take the time with every single customer doing the same thing, to be honest with you.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
It's a big thing when you're dealing with things like this, right? It's a premium product.
and you're personally custom building it. So if something goes wrong, it's not what the customer wants. It's tricky to go back, and redo it, right? Once it's completed.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's one of the downfalls I'm having with this right now. I've kind of delayed my customer once, twice already, but I don't want to give him a product where I'm gonna have to be going to Montreal to either fix this thing, or he's gonna be complaining about it. So like, I'd rather take the time with it, and it's not like to be honest with you, I'm losing money on this unit, but it's education to me. So I'm paying for the education because the next unit I know exactly what I'm going to be doing and what I'm not going to be doing, right? And this is something that we went through, and it's good though because I'm really humble about it. I am going to make mistakes when I'm doing a custom build,
Yeah.
and if you're humble yourself, like you can appreciate the honesty, and that's the way I kind of structure my business. Like I want integrity behind it, right?
And customers will appreciate that too. They just don't want the sale and for you to take their money and that's it, right? Like, because I'm sure they're going to be coming
Exactly.
back to you after they've got the equipment for servicing things, things like that.
No, exactly. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Okay, so you've got the drum, you've got the Santa Maria, you've got the smokers coming up December. What about the pellet style grills? Have you gotten into those yet, or planning to, or what's the
I've
version?
I've looked into it. So the body of the unit is not a problem for me. It's the actual pellet feeders themselves. So if I wanted to, so I always look at something and say, if I was going to mass produce this, how would I do this? And I've looked into actual pellet smokers themselves, and because it's kind of a North American theme. Like you don't really see people in Europe or Asia doing anything like that. Um, which means a lot of the actual pellet feeders are actually American made, right?
Yeah,
The price of the price of the units are actually still pretty high. So even if I was outsourced maybe 100 of them, I'd still be paying minimum $175 per pellet feeder. So it kind of deviates from what I want to do, to be exact. And to be honest with you, I've cooked with it before. I'm not a real big fan of it, to be honest with you.
why is that?
It's almost like, I would say, like a lazy way of cooking. Like I
There's
do it for
no there's no fire management that's done manually, right? It's all automatic.
exactly, and
And
it
that's
kind
the
of takes
fun
the
of the
fun
job.
out of it. I mean, if you're into like digital stuff, like yeah, sure, but I mean, even with these Bluetooth thermometers that are out now, like I just couldn't believe that you would even need that on your phone, right? Like watch your barbecue. That's the way I see it, man.
Wow, that's awesome. No, that's interesting. Yeah. So
I
I
mean,
mean,
I'm being real about it, really.
sorry, say that again. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, I'm just being real about it. Like I don't really see like I try to keep the computers out of it. You know what I mean? Like you want to spend time away from your phone and away from like electronics. I just want to be in it. You know what I mean? That's what I see as a happy end user, being emotionally involved in it. You know what I mean?
Got it, got it. No, that makes sense. And again, getting back to what we were saying at the start of this, do it the way you want to do it. Each one, has their own passion. They have their own take on things,
Exactly.
personal to them. I mean, we've covered a lot. I'm really excited to see, more of your posts and, what you have to do. I'm hoping we'll do another episode like this in the future. And get into some more semantics. I myself am still learning, just like you've shared, you yourself are learning, and that group is great because we learn a lot from people's experiences in that group, and it's one of those things. Every day, someone's smoking something there. Like it's unreal. You can go there at any time of day, 365 days a year, and someone's doing something, in parts of the world, which is awesome, and it's very motivating.
No,
And
exactly, and it's one of the reasons why I like those forums too, is because it's almost like it's non-judgmental. You just everyone's got their own method of doing things. I see a lot of people that are humble and like, yo, I've done this for the first time. I don't know if I'm doing this right. Can you please give me some feedback? And I love that stuff, because there's no pride behind it. It's just people being people, really, and it's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. And then if I'm ever sort of looking to build one of these custom machines, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to ask you to do the impossible. I'm going to ask you to build me something where we don't need a grate or a rotisserie to hold the meat. You have to figure out how to suspend it in air.
I'm always up for a challenge, man. If I can try to figure it out, I'll figure it out.
That's my pet peeve, like I want the same heat on the bottom, the same radiant treatment on the bottom that I get on the top. But unfortunately, with a
That
lot of
is where the
physics.
steel drum comes in. To be honest with you, the most ghetto way of cooking is a steel drum barbecue, but it's the most precise way, because the way the heat actually circulates around the drum, it's exactly 360 cooking. And if your grill is exactly centered, you'll get that even heat all around, right?
Oh, nice! I didn't know that. That's awesome.
It's all about the science and things. If you stop and pay attention about to the science and things and see how things work, I don't know. Maybe it's just my mind that's a little bit different. I've always tried to look at the science and things before I actually jump into it. You know what I mean?
No, Franklin from Franklin Barbies says the same thing. If you read his book, he gets into very sort of technical things, but it's important to know that so you can control the barbecue at the end.
No, does it? You know what? I've actually been hearing about a lot of the Ted Franklin. I've seen some of his work. I've never really seen a lot of it, but I've heard really good things. And actually, to be honest with you, I'm going to buy his book. I actually want to read it now that you mentioned that. I should be learning more about these things.
It's a great book. I just got it last week and I'm on, I think, chapter 4. And he really spells it out. Like he even talks about, designing smokers and modifying smokers because he does it himself, right? He welds himself. He builds his bits himself.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I've heard he's actually backlogged like about a year and a half right now with orders.
I'll send you some videos and resources.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd appreciate that.
But listen, Rob, thanks so much again for doing this. I wish you all the best. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, so actually been busy with fabricating stuff, but I haven't gotten a chance to hook up my website yet. But you can find me on Facebook or Instagram at Capo Cooktops,
Okay.
CAPO Cooktops.
Okay, perfect. And I'll put this in the show notes as well. So if anyone wants to follow up, they can do that. And I'm going to post this in the barbecue group as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that.
Welcome. Thanks again, Rob, for doing this. And good luck. And I'm sure we'll talk soon.
No problem, Brian. Have a good night.
Okay, thanks.